Welcome to the SecureWorld Sessions. We're a cybersecurity podcast that is all about access. Access to people and ideas that can impact your personal cybersecurity career and help you secure your organization. Hi, my name is Bruce Sussman. I'm Director of Content at SecureWorld and also your podcast host. And in today's session, we're talking about a career path many in cybersecurity aspire to. I'm talking about going from a technologist to a leader in cybersecurity.
Take me to your leader.
It can be done, it has been done, and today we'll hear from a Vice President of Information Security on how he got it done. We also have some fascinating new research from Trend Micro because its team set up a smart factory honeypot to attract cyber criminals and hackers. Always a cool idea. I love these things. And Trend Micro, by the way, is our premier sponsor of the podcast. Now, let's talk about careers in cybersecurity, your career. And let's pretend for a moment you are in Switzerland. There is yodeling, of course. And you're at the base of the Swiss Alps. You look around, it's beautiful. The birds are chirping in the sun. The mountains are wide. There's a lot of ground to cover. And as you look up, the mountain's both tall and increasingly narrow. You want to reach the top, but you wonder, how can I get from where I am now all the way up there? Well, during an actual visit to Switzerland with my cousins many years ago, we found a shortcut. We took the Harderbahn funicular railway. We got close to the top in just about 10 minutes, and no wonder, because that railway's maximum incline is a 64% grade. Now, the journey still involved quite a hike at the end and a lot of work, but we were able to make what otherwise seemed like an impossible journey. And sometimes climbing the career ladder can feel that way. It looks like an overwhelming task. And so I hope today's podcast interview may have a funicular railway type of impact on your career track. Regardless of whether you're at the base of the career mountain looking up, or you're halfway up already, and you can see the top coming into view. With some help, you know you can get there. Now, my interview today is with Randy Raw, Vice President of Information Security at Veterans United Home Loans. The company, by the way, is the #1 VA lender in the United States. I spoke with Randy at SecureWorld St. Louis, which is one of SecureWorld's 17 regional cybersecurity conferences across North America each year. And Randy is not only on the advisory council there, but he was speaking on moving from InfoSec technician to InfoSec leadership. And he has a lot of actionable insight. So let's go to the conference in St. Louis now as we unpack this topic in our interview. All right, so let's talk about your session, which has to do with the transition from the technical aspects of security and working in that to leadership. I mean, here you are, Vice President now. I'm assuming this mirrors your journey. Is that right?
Yeah, it's going to be a little bit about how I've learned some things, usually the hard way, to move from individual contributor as a technician, system administrator, network administrator is typically where we see people come from. And then what are the leadership skills that person needs to learn as they want to move into either management or leadership in general. But particularly if they're looking at a CISO or something at that level, really what are the different skill sets that are not technical at all, that often the technical people struggle with, that are really easily learned, but we just don't have the visibility in a lot of our information security technical roles.
Okay, that's great. Well, that's going to be really helpful to our audience. Before we get to what those things are, so let's talk about how you started and what your security roles have been. Kind of march us through that, if you would.
So I started out on the network side doing network setup and that sort of thing, moved into system administration. I'm of the era that I was before the internet, so we learned a lot of things about things to do and not to do with the internet. But during that whole time, security was always something that was just an add-on portion of a system administrator role. So I was at a school, K-12 school, whenever we first literally got internet access.
Wow.
Connected everybody up, migrated to a college, was there for about 5 years, and continued to see that evolution of more and more. The internet was not going to just be a fad, and it wasn't going to go away. And by the way, you need to secure that.
All right.
And so was a director of technology at the college, and then moved to a state network provider and helped stand up a lot of information security functions and practices at a large base of Missouri schools and libraries and colleges, helping them learn how to do that. And then landed in the position where I'm at now to help build a security function from literally nothing. I was the first person that started to focus on security when we were a much smaller, much different company, and really focused on internet. Everything that we do is based around internet.
Okay.
So really the security of that is paramount to what we do.
And so thinking about your career path or that of many others in security, because as I like to say, security is still rising in prominence, right? And many leaders are doing the same thing as a result. Many professionals becoming those leaders. What kinds of things do people in technical roles who want to aim for that CISO or senior director or whatever it is, what kind of things do you think they need to acquire?
The first thing really is to think about security from a risk perspective. So many of the technicians think about, I have to secure all the things all the time. And we know we're not doing that, but we often have this Pollyanna perspective that we want to try. Well, maybe what we need to do is look at how does the business, what's the language of business, and that is risk. We know that we're going to accept some risk. We know, even as we think about technicians, opening a firewall port assumes some risk, but we don't think of it that way. And so getting a technician to think about the language of risk and how executives are considering things and acknowledging that we're not going to fix everything. We will accept some risk. We'll transfer some risk to an insurance company, or maybe we'll have to still prioritize something that needs to get done. But how do we do that in a sane manner that makes sense, that doesn't break the bank?
And what have you kind of learned? Like, how did you make that transition in your own career?
Yeah, so part of it was when I was at the state network before, was really helping people see that we're already not securing all the things. So what is the most important thing? And particularly being in government and education entities, they didn't have budgets that were sufficient or leadership that even understood. Because in government and education, we have a different perspective on risk oftentimes than we do in for-profit companies. And so it was really beginning to prioritize and to think about information security from that perspective. And then as you move into a business role, it's even more important. And it's more valuable to be able to, if you want to have a seat at the table talking with executives, you need to speak the language they're talking. And if you're talking about denial of service attacks and all kinds of malware and in the weeds, those executives don't understand it, and they don't probably need to understand it. That's not most important on their agenda. That's why you're there. But you have to translate that into a business language that they can understand. And the common denominator is dollars of risk. So not only talking about risk, but talk about it in a dollars and cents aspect. That's something that we don't do well as technicians because we also see things black and white. It's either secure or not. And I've used myself in past. It's kind of like saying you're only a little bit pregnant or no, you're either pregnant or not. You're either secure or you're not. Well, really there are some shades of that. How secure do we need to be? What is a sufficient level of security? And getting people to think more in that line of thinking, because that's how our executives are thinking. Whether we agree with it or not, that's the language of business.
Yeah, it's very interesting. And one of the things I'm wondering is, as you, let's say you are a sysadmin or something else along those lines, and you're wanting to work your way up, is it better to keep moving organizations? It sounds like you've been at quite a few. Does that expose you to more? Is that the easiest way for you to make that move, or can you do it within an organization?
I think it depends on your organization. I think you can do it within an organization. Sometimes it's a little more challenging because if an organization is not growing very fast, there may not be many opportunities to step into a role that someone vacated, or there may not be new positions that come along. It's one of those, you almost have to each person is going to have a different path where they go. But unfortunately, sometimes it is a career move that you have to look at. Who is a company that is seeking services that either I know I can provide or that I can fill the gap and I can learn?
Now, speaking of learning, what are the skills that can help make you shine? What makes you appear as a leader, right, that an organization wants to hire? We're going to talk about those things and developing alliances when our interview continues. Now, we get to reveal some intriguing new results from a smart factory honeypot setup by researchers at Trend Micro. You probably know honeypots are a computer or network-based decoy, really. That's what they are, to lure cyber attackers that can either help you detect, deflect, or study hacking attempts. And in this case, Trend Micro researchers described the setup like this. I'm quoting here. We designed our pure production honeypot to mimic a real system, including programmable logic controllers, a human-machine interface, and other components of an industrial control system. And we then created a cover company for this faux factory, including real human employees, working contact channels, and a client base composed of large, anonymous organizations from critical industries. That's the end quote there. And you can imagine how attractive something like this would be to hackers. So what kinds of things happen? Well, I can't talk about all of it. We don't have time, but here are a few highlights. Hackers installed crypto miners onto the network. Several caused system shutdowns, several of the attacks. There were multiple ransomware attacks. One time, a hacker was attacking the network, but that attack was stopped short because another hacker came on board and launched a ransomware attack, which messed the whole original attack up. Very fascinating, isn't it? There's much more, but those are just some of the highlights as I was looking through the report. All of this leads us to today's Trend Micro Top 3. Number 1, ransomware actors continue to regularly search for, find, and target networks. Number 2, organizations utilizing human-machine interface software should ensure their systems are hardened, especially if they utilize VNC or virtual network computing. That's one of the things that the researchers learned in this case. And number 3, as an organization, you need to be cognizant that you will be attacked by many actors with many different motivations. Another thing that the Smart Factory Honeypot research clearly revealed. Trend Micro is our premier podcast partner, and I'm putting a link to this research in the show notes. I don't know about you, I can never seem to get enough of research like this. It's just fascinating to read, and it gives you some insight into the mind and the behavior of attackers. Today, we're talking with Randy Raw, Vice President of Information Security at Veterans United Home Loans. And we've already covered some serious ground about his career track and his move from cybersecurity technologist to cybersecurity leadership. So now let's continue our interview as we get into some specific items that can help you advance along a similar career track. And what would you say right now as you look at the skill sets that those who go into cybersecurity leadership need to have? What would you put on that list? Do you have some hot items?
Yeah, so again, thinking about risk.
Right.
But also from just a pure leadership perspective, if you're going to be leading people, emotional intelligence is really, really important, especially with newer generation employees. And it's not that it wasn't important with older generation employees, but you could get away with a more directive approach. Just tell somebody what to do and they would go do it. That doesn't work as well with younger employees. And I'm hesitant to call out any particular generation.
We won't call out that M generation.
No,
we're not doing that.
Well, because Gen Z is coming right along behind them,
exactly.
and they're maybe further down that scale of looking for non-directive instruction instead of directive instruction. But even that is, what does that mean? How does that look? I had a conversation with a person this week where he was talking through some of that, and a light bulb came on of this is why I haven't been successful with one particular team.
Wow.
Because I've been doing only directive instruction with them. Haven't explained the big picture why to a point where they understand it. Because the young generations, they do value responsibility. They want to own things, but their definition of ownership is very different than those of us that have been around for a while. And some of it's just a nuanced change of language and a change of approach. Some of it is pretty significant, but emotional intelligence and understanding that, understanding more about how the brain processes what we do and the why, being able to connect with people. And that's another challenge, particularly with security people. We tend to be much more of give me my computer and don't make me talk to anybody.
Right.
And in that role, as you move into a leadership role, you're going to need to have business partners within the business that you talk with. And if you can't carry on a conversation with them and understand their portion of the business and what their pain points are, they're not going to understand or care about yours. And so even with security awareness efforts that you do, we see people getting thwarted all the time because they just don't have business relationships where they can go to someone and say, I need to talk with your employees about the importance of phishing, or I need to talk, your employees are getting this sort of an attack leveraged against them all the time. Let's have a quick conversation with them. And if you don't have a relationship, they're just going to say, no, I'm not going to do that.
Right, so you've got to kind of develop those alliances.
Yep.
And the only way you're going to do that is if you're speaking a language that everybody else understands.
Yes.
It kind of comes full circle.
Yeah.
Interesting, yeah.
Some of the things, too, around strengths finders, of people acknowledging I have certain strengths, and there are certain things I don't have strengths. So how do I surround people in my area with those that are strong in areas I'm not? Mm-hmm. Or how do I go partner with somebody who has those strengths that can help me? One of the things that we see a lot of people that are very strong in is strategic strengths and execution, not so much in relationships or particularly influencing. And so when you evaluate that, it's really no wonder that we really have a hard time with security awareness, because that is all about influencing people.
Right.
But if we don't have that strength and that's not top of mind, we just miss an opportunity that's there.
And what I hear you saying is that doesn't mean you're stuck there, because you can acquire these skills.
Yes. And that's mostly the content of my presentation, is talking about that, and not even talking about it from an information security perspective, because I think the skill sets that I cover are across the board. They're general leadership skills that no matter whether you're an information security specialist or you are in IT, a developer, or you're just in the business line. We see that same thing in some of our business leaders, is they need to understand the same soft skill set of how to communicate with their business partners, but then also with IT, because there are very few companies that don't have a significant IT underpinning. And
right, everybody's an IT company now, right?
They are. We used to joke about these people were IT companies and these people were something else. Well, no, every company is an IT company. Everything runs on something IT. We've all got mobile apps, we've got infrastructure, everything connects back somewhere. And so bringing those business partners along and helping educate them to help the company move forward, information security needs to be part of an innovation strategy. You can't be the no people. If you say no too many times without good reason, they're going to go around you, because there's so many opportunities and other solutions that take the place of what you're doing, and that's not where you want to be.
Yeah, that's fantastic. Well, thank you so much for all of your insights on this. And I'm just curious, I know that you've probably got a million things on your to-do list at your shop, but here you are on the Advisory Council in St. Louis and speaking at SecureWorld. Why do you believe collaborating makes a difference? Because clearly, if you didn't, you probably wouldn't be here.
Right. So we're only going to get better if we help each other. We know the enemy that we're facing collaborates. And we often, probably with wrong reasons, don't collaborate nearly enough on the good guy side of things. But there's also a real good sense of satisfaction of helping somebody else. If you help enough people get what they want, then you're going to get what you want. And sometimes that means extending yourself beyond your company, your boundaries, but understanding that truth, that it's about how do we help each other? How does the rising tide raise all the boats? I used to have a boss that used that all the time, and I really truly believe that, of sharing information, sharing knowledge, Obviously with some boundaries around it, but helping everybody get better is going to help us all.
I really believe what he is saying there, don't you? Helping everyone get better is going to help us all. That is so true in security. So thanks, Randy, for your leadership, and also thanks for sharing the lessons that you have learned, which can help others on their cybersecurity career track. Now, all the best to you on your career trajectory. And if by chance you get to Interlaken, Switzerland, be sure to check out the Harderbahn Funicular Railway and pack a picnic lunch for when you do reach the top. Now, a quick question. What has worked in your career? If you say, this is the number one thing that I did that really helped me, what is it? Or conversely, this is the number one thing I wish I would have done. What is that? Will you let me know? Our address is media@secureworldexpo.com. That is media@secureworldexpo.com. Okay, let's talk about next time. Hacking cars and cybersecurity on the road. One of the many questions we're going to tackle in this next episode, if your connected car gets hacked, what should happen next? Think about that question. We've got new research on what drivers are saying about that situation, and we'll talk to an expert in the field of connected car security. That is next week. Well, thank you so much for listening. You are a really important part of SecureWorld's mission, which is connecting, informing, and developing leaders in cybersecurity. And on behalf of the entire SecureWorld team, I'm Bruce Sussman, your host of the SecureWorld Sessions. Let's catch up again on the next episode.
You're the